Hey, sixth graders, it's Mr. Gardell. It's great to be back with you. All right, let's start with the joke of the day. Which flower talks the most? Which flower talks the most? You know the drill. You got 5 seconds. All right, your time is up. So, again, which flower talks the most? Of course, it's tulips. Why? Because they have 2 lips. I crack myself up. I know I made you laugh. Don't deny it. All right, let's move on. So, recently you completed learning checkpoint number 4. I want to go over learning checkpoint number 4 right now with you just to make sure you understand anything you got incorrect, if you in fact got anything incorrect in this learning checkpoint. So, let's take a look at that learning checkpoint. Introduction to Civil War. In the fall of 1860, President Abraham Lincoln was elected the 16th President of the United States of America. As a result of this election, Southern states seceded or withdrew and formed their own country known as the Confederate States of America. The 16th President of the United States announced it was not legal for the U.S. to split in two. In other words, Lincoln said, "You can't do that. I understand you have different beliefs than states in the North, but you can't just decide to form your own country known as the Confederate States of America." We'll talk about one of the main causes of the Civil War in a couple of minutes. Continuing. On April 12th of 1861, Confederate forces fired on U.S. troops at Fort Sumter in South Carolina. The Union or North was at war against the Confederacy or South. Both sides immediately began building up their armies with the help of volunteers from each state. Minnesota was the first state from the North to contribute volunteers, known as the 1st Minnesota Volunteer Infantry Regiment. These 1,009 volunteers trained at Fort Snelling. Yeah, that's true. 100% true. Okay. Our state was the first state to say, "Hey, Mr. President, we will volunteer troops to fight on the North or Union side during the Civil War." And one of those 1,009 volunteers that trained at Fort Snelling, that was part of the 1st Minnesota Volunteer Infantry Regiment, was Charlie Goddard. Slavery. Yep, one of the causes of the Civil War without a doubt. Okay. Dred and Harriet Scott were an enslaved couple who fought for their freedom in Missouri courts and the U.S. Supreme Court over the course of 11 years. Imagine fighting for your freedom for 11 years. In the end, long story short, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled against this couple and refused to give them their freedom, even though they had once lived in Minnesota. In 1857, however, this couple's owners freed them. Here's what mind boggles me. Okay. So when the U.S. Supreme Court ruled against Dred and Harriet Scott to grant them their freedom, these were the reasons why. The court stated that African Americans were not citizens, so they had no rights under the Constitution. The ruling also stated that enslaved people were considered property and that slave owners could not be deprived of their property. Your cell phone is your property. Okay? Your laptop, your Chromebook, if you own it, is your property. You own a lot of property, a lot of items. But the court ruled, this U.S. Supreme Court ruled, that Dred and Harriet Scott were property. And that's why, one of the reasons were given, they wouldn't be set free. Unfortunately, once the Scots were ruled free in 1857, about a year later, Dred Scott died of tuberculosis, which is a lung disease. All right, let's continue. The North versus the South. By the early 1800s, slavery was beginning to divide the United States of America into two. We've talked about that already. In the North, more and more people were coming to believe slavery was morally wrong and unprofitable. Minnesota, for example, banned slavery from the start. In the South, the story was different, with people believing slavery was a necessary part of life. Farmers, especially plantation owners, relied on cheap labor to make their sugar, tobacco, and cotton crops profitable. So that gives you kind of some insight and some background into the Civil War and what was going on between the North and the South, and what was one of the major causes of the war itself: slavery, of course. All right, so when you're finished watching this video, you're going to read a short section on the Reconstruction Amendments on page 8.17 in our online textbook. You have to scroll in order to get to the rest of this text. But these are 3 Reconstruction Amendments, Reconstruction meaning to rebuild, amendments to help our country. Okay? The last thing you're going to read is a section on the last Union soldier. I'll let you read that section as well. Then you're going to focus really the majority of the rest of your time on an individual by the name of Eliza Winston. And you're going to specifically encounter a person named Emily Gray. Who is Emily Gray? What role did she have in helping Eliza Winston become free? And how did Eliza Winston become free when Dred and Harriet Scott fought for their freedom for 11 years and were denied their opportunity to be free? Was it a different decade? Okay. Did it matter where they were living? Did it matter where, these individuals fought for their freedom? In other words, what states they were fighting their freedom in? So you're going to read a short article about Emily Gray. You just simply have to click on that link and then watch a short video on Emily Gray by clicking that link as well. If you want to read more about the freedom for Eliza Winston, which includes Emily Gray, you can do so on pages 8.07 and 8.08 in our online textbook. When you're finished with those learning activities, then you're going to complete a review of today's learning activities, exit ticket in Schoology, and then you're going to finish the day by reading a short chapter on town life in Soldier's Heart. In other words, you're reading chapter 7. All right. As always, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact me or your HOA teacher. Take care and have a fabulous day.